And we are started. Hello, everyone. It is November 3rd. We're almost at Christmas. Screw Thanksgiving. It's just intermission to Christmas.
Christmas halftime.
Yes, yes. Intermission, halftime, whatever you want to say. But welcome, everyone. It is November, like I said. It's a glorious day. And before us jabronis get started, I just want to say a big thank you to all our YouTube fans. Let's get the subscriptions up. Click to subscribe because listen, you guys are killing it with the clips I'm making for our YouTube channel. The views are awesome. And we are 2 views away from 1K for our will I accept my nephew's offer for fantasy football trades? I love it. I love it. The Dick Insider one was trending on ours for number one, but it has been surpassed by fantasy football nephew trades, nephew offers, whatever. But overall, it's great. You guys are looking at our clips, trying to like redo the YouTube page, make it more pretty, add more
It's
content on
pretty.
there. You know,
Well, yeah, I saw something. I got an email about something saying that we're a premium. Did you try a premium trial on our YouTube?
yeah. I
Okay,
did, I did. Did a premium trial. There was some
we're
features on
premium.
there I wanted to try in regards to that. So we have till December 2nd to see if I like that premium. But listen, I added a banner, but I'm gonna make changes to that banner soon. Gonna add our social media items onto that banner. I have a new banner in the works. Just appreciate everyone who's clicking on our videos to watch them. Sometimes I'm dropping a couple in a day, whatever the case may be. And now I'm getting our Facebook, trying to throw those same clips on from YouTube on our Facebook channel to get those going. And those seem to be picking up a little steam here and there. So just once again, just want to say thank you to all the fans who've been cooking and watching and listening to us three jabronis talk about nothing, in between nothing, around nothing, above and below nothing. So it's great. So just want to say a
So,
big thank you.
no, that's cool, and thank you for taking that on, Joe.
Yes. And listen, everybody on our audio platforms, we had good numbers, and then we took some time off where we weren't posted on there, but I'm slowly posting back on our audio, and our numbers are starting to, downloads are starting to increase like they used to be back in the day. So thank you to everyone who's listening on our audio platforms like Spotify and Apple Music and all that good stuff. So once again, appreciate it. We're rocking and rolling. Let's make 2025. Let's bring in the money. Play Shane McMahon's music.
Ooh, maybe I could quit my job. No, no, that would be a no. I'm not gonna do that. I mean, we would have to. I mean, in order to do that, we would have to probably be podcasting on a daily basis, and I don't know if I want to talk that much.
Well, you know, we can get Pat to talk that much, I think.
I'd
I'd
run out of
actually have
things
to
to
start
talk
doing some
about.
research and stuff and talk about stuff and act like I know stuff instead of just making it up on the fly. Like, yeah, that sounds good.
You
Oh
know,
boy.
I only just noticed that Jeremy is broadcasting from a different location in his domicile.
Yes, I am in my dining room. That's where I am. So, yes, the scenery has changed and it looks brighter in here. Maybe it's because I put the shades open on the one window, let some sunlight in. Because all the sunlight
No,
in my room
probably.
from my office comes from behind me or above me, and it's still behind me even though it's above me. So it's very dark and gloomy in my face, even though I'm a bright ray of sunshine. But so I think we should start off by talking about the world. No, I mean the crown jewel. We won't talk about the World Series. It's like we don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about the World Series here. We don't want to bring up hurt feelings. So I think we should talk about the crown jewel because you guys looked through the results. I know Darth Pat, you're not going to watch that one because you have referred to it as many times as our fans know as the Blood Money pay per view, or PLE. But I
Indeed.
started to watch it. I'm continuing to watch it today just because I don't watch as much wrestling as I used to, so I like to catch up sometimes on the PLEs and see what's going on. So, do we want to start there, or should we start with a different topic? We could talk about fantasy football again. That's always fun.
I mean, we could start with the world of professional wrestling. I will say I for watched this past week. I was busy with a lot of esports stuff um, outside of work. As everyone doesn't know, I had a procedure done, so I can shoot blanks these days moving forward. But anyway, I had a lot of stuff going on with esports this week after work, so I did not watch a lot of professional wrestling. So I just had to like pretty much I've watched stuff here and there. Like last night, as you saw my text message in the group chat, I was like, I watched the last hour of AEW Collision, which wasn't bad, but the promo with Johnny TV and the M&M faction, those two guys was quite interesting. Considering the fact that the guys from the M&M group decided to do, um, so let me backtrack. Johnny TV gave them a compliment, and they're like, "We love to receive a compliment from somebody like, we love getting a compliment from somebody like you," I think he said. And the taller dude, the black gentleman, then came up. I always forget their names. Said, "We also like receiving as well." Like one says giving, one says we're getting it and receiving. I was like, whoa, okay, where are we going? It was a very I'm paraphrasing some of it. I don't have it verbatim, people, so don't shoot me with this one. But that's kind of the gist of it. And I was kind of like, they made Johnny TV very flamboyant per se with his ring attire and him doing his poses and stuff that he did multiple times in that promo. But yeah, that's what I was like, the WTF am I watching right now? It was very interesting.
Yeah,
So,
I'll have to go watch
so
this
you're
because
saying that
I
his
gotta find out who Johnny TV is because
Johnny
I don't.
Morrison.
Oh, is it Johnny Morrison?
They
Okay, I
every
thought
time he
that's where it
goes
was going.
every time they go he goes to another promotion. It's like Johnny, and then they make up some shit fucking last name for him. Um, just go. I just wish they would just stick with Johnny Morrison. But
Well, he
he
can't
wants.
well,
because
that's a trademark name.
WWE owns the Morrison portion.
Um, I have to look. I'm not sure because I think he used that in the indie scene for a while. So he might not. I think he might own that per se. But at some point, anywho, yeah, it was an interesting segment. Um,
That was no bueno. What I
the
just
the
saw.
the last part, the last hour that I watched of AEW Collision was okay. Nothing unexpected per se. Kind of predictable, like the crown jewel was yesterday. But yeah, I apologize, fans. I did not watch a lot of wrestling. Just read results. You know, got a lot of stuff going on outside of work these days, so it's very sporadic.
Yeah, wrestling's kind of boring right now, to be frank.
Mm. I've kind of heard that from multiple people. It's kind of
AEW can claim and make us think that this Moxley storyline is going to be something of like great significance, but no, it's not.
I'm waiting to see when this payoff happens with this storyline. Because I feel like there needs to be something else attached to this. Because if it's just this, then I don't really feel like it's going to have the oomph in a storytelling aspect that I'm looking for, or many others may be looking for as well.
No, right now it's just kind of like, eh. I mean,
Uh,
again, they
yeah.
can claim whatever the hell they want, but it's not doing it for me right now. I mean, like I got suckered in not this past week, the week before,
Mhm.
where like the show kicked off. They were doing this promo out in the middle of the desert, which okay, fine, whatever.
At least it's different.
And they're showing all the guys who essentially weren't on the show for the most part, except for Mark Briscoe. Like standing guard at the entrance. And then, at the end they sneaking through the back and they beat the shit out of Chuck Taylor.
Yep.
Who fucking cares? I know the whole point was because it's to get Orange Cassidy into it, which is also, look, he's popular with that audience, fine. But again, if that's like, if Orange Cassidy is going to be your Sting, then no, you've already lost. You need to have somebody of a little bit more stature. But of course, that's the whole problem. They don't.
Mm.
So I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to bother continuing to really follow this much. I mean, I'll read the results just so I know what's going on, but it's like I'm not going to watch next week's show, and I didn't. So
I feel like AEW is very heel driven for the
it
past
is.
past 6, 7, 8 months, maybe. That's why it kind of feels like the faces are few and far between. Or we have I know people don't like the word tweener, but I feel like we have a couple of them too, and it's kind of like it's just like who we see on TV. It's 80% heels and 20% faces.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like, when you have, especially when you have so many heel factions, like you can't even say the Dark Order is a heel faction anymore. They're really not. They're just their face. I guess you could say there's just a group of their faces. They kind of made them faces a long time ago, but even them, they're not very relevant per se in regards to this. And I know they kind of threw them in there with this whole Moxley storyline because of whatever reason may be. It's fine, but getting some people on TV that haven't been on in a while to kind of have Moxley's group run a buck, run amok, I should say,
Run a
through
buck. I'd
yeah,
like a
run
buck.
amok, run amok. God, I can't
Come
talk
on,
today.
come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
Run amok through, AEW's faces per se, but it's I don't know where the payoff is in regards to it.
Yeah,
Um,
like it's I'm gonna, give one of my dated movie references here, but there's the classic Western from the mid 1960s of Charlton Heston, directed by Sam Peckinpah, called Major Dundee. And like the opening scene of the movie is the band of native tribe. I don't remember which tribe it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be Apache or another one. It's because it's somewhere like in the Southwest, so it could be Apache, Comanche. I just don't remember, and I'm not going to look it up while I'm trying to explain it. Um, but the opening scene is like them, like killing a bunch of like white settlers or a detachment of soldiers. I don't remember, maybe both. But at the end, like it shows like the main like villain, of the native tribe and everything, and he says like he like is probably like stating his name, and I can't remember his name now either. It's been so long since I've seen the damn movie. But he says, "Who will you send against me now?"
yeah,
That's pretty much what Moxley's group could be saying right now.
yeah, 100%. The other thing I did watch Dynamite, um, parts of Dynamite Wednesday. I did watch the Young Bucks first. God, Top Flight was it? Yeah. Um, for the AEW tag belts. Um, Overall, listen,
Hmm.
multiple false finishes aside, I thought it was a good match. I think Top Flight is very talented. Some good moves, some good spots, whatever the case may be. I guess from what I've read, the Young Bucks were taking some time off. Um,
And there was
yes,
much rejoicing.
yes, Pat. Um, they are taking some time off. Kudos.
I'd like to
Um,
see what the ratings go from without the Young Bucks being on there. If their ratings increase or if they stay the same.
oh, believe
Well,
me,
that's
there
that's
it's
that's
gonna
a very
be
good question because of the fact that
it'll be documented. Don't worry.
there's been a lot of times in where the ratings have shown that the ratings go when the Bucks are on.
Yeah. But kudos to Top Flight. They put them over. They're the tag champions. Let's see what they can do with the belts. I do um know that they're doing a tag team, whatever you want to call it, And then after all these matches, it'll be a fatal four-way at Full Gear for the tag belts, I believe. But whatever the
They're
storyline,
doing an eliminator thing
yeah,
again. Is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
yes, eliminator thing. So that's fine. It is what it is.
It's doing tournaments without doing tournaments.
Correct.
It's pretty ridiculous.
I know. It's different though. But let's see what
It's really not
happens.
different. They've been doing it for so long, and it's always the same shit.
I know. It's different in a different aspect. I'll explain that later. But they dropped the belts to Top Flight. Let's see what Top Flight can do with the belts.
Mm-hmm.
They put the story that they're shredding papers and they're leaving. I don't know. Like if they're taking time off now, here's my issue. What's going to happen to Jack Perry, and what's going to happen to Okada? Like, are those two going to stay together and figure things out, or are they going to separate the both of them and kind of be on their way? Like, what are you doing with those two storyline wise?
You know what's funny is I didn't even consider that because that's how much I don't want to think about those two guys.
You're
But seriously, they are going to have to figure out something to do with that because they're paying Okada a shit ton of money, and unless his English is better than what they've let on with what he said since he's been in AEW, they're going to have to keep him with somebody who can talk for him
I
because you can't just have him going out there and saying "bitch" all the time.
I know for some
Great word
people
though.
I know for some people it's not they're not. Listen, I am still 50-50 on that. Sometimes I think it's funny, sometimes I think it's a little too much, sometimes I don't think it's necessary. It's hard for me to see this type of Okada in America, considering the fact of the Okada I've watched for years in New Japan be this badass motherfucker, where now he's in US. He's had some matches, some decent matches, nothing compared to what I've really seen in New Japan in his career. He can still go. It has nothing to do with his age. I just feel like whatever they're doing with them, they're letting them have some fun. Cool. That's fine. But at some point, we need to have like at least a semi-serious Okada that I'm used to in New Japan. Like
See,
that's what I need to see because the man's a beast. It just sucks not seeing that Okada right
well,
now.
you see, that's one of the problems that I have again as somebody who barely hasn't been watching a lot lately. You say Okada can still go. When I've seen Okada, I've seen a broken down guy who can't still go. And that was most glaringly obvious in the Blood and Guts match where he just would not take a bump of any kind. If
Yeah.
you watch him in that whole
Uh,
match, he refused to like go down. If he got hit with something, he would like crumple. He wouldn't bump. So it was like so I don't know if he can really still go. From what I've seen, and again, I've not seen as much as you. I freely admit that. But this is the problem too. Like, let's say you're somebody like me who's only just tuning in like casually, and that's all you're seeing, and you're thinking,
I get it.
why the fuck is this guy a big deal? So again, I'm saying that's on them. That's on the way that they're booking him and everything. But I don't know. And I'm still not a believer in Jungle Jack off. So um hey, but
I'm
you know
iffy on
what?
him. I
Well,
don't.
here's the thing with him now. So the Bucks aren't going to be there to be a crutch for him in any way, shape, or form now.
Oh,
So now's your fucking opportunity. You either actually show something now, or there's going to be, proven obvious that you just don't have it. So,
yep.
and I have a funny Jungle Jack adjacent story, but
Okay.
we can wait for that one.
Yeah. I mean, for him, it is. It's going to be his time to prove what he can do, not just in the ring, but on the mic, storytelling, everything. And we'll
Yeah.
see if he's
No.
going to be able to do that
Yeah, and the other
currently.
the other problem they have right now too is that okay, so the Bucks are going away, right? Fine. But what then is the point yeah, where does he go from here? In the sense that what do you do with him? What's his storyline? What's his program? Because the Elite were still supposed to be doing this "we're taking over" thing, or "we're running the show," and now they've been scared off by Moxley and his group, which
It's so
I mean,
it's so weird.
it is, because you essentially have Moxley and his group now all of a sudden doing what the Elite were supposed to be doing.
Maybe. I
So
don't
it's like
know.
they wanted to do the NWO story, but then they're like, okay, we can't really do the NWO story completely because, that's already been done. So let's turn you into a bunch of shriveling cowards that run away at the first sight of adversity.
Well, that's my problem too. It's like we were talking about, like, who's the guy that's actually going to lead this charge? Orange Cassidy isn't it? To me, Darby Allin isn't it either. I mean, Darby's got that weird charisma, but he's also an idiot.
One one
In
heel
the way that he
faction runs
works
away
and
from another
everything.
heel faction. That's always good.
Well, there's really only one obvious answer as to who should be the guy to lead the charge.
Moxley, duh.
No, no, for the faces he means.
Oh, for the faces. You're losing me. I'm trying to keep up. All right, for the faces.
But he's giving you a stink face right now.
Hey, you never know. Moxley could do a turn and become face all of a sudden. Be
Well,
the
no,
swerve,
because there's the
face.
aspect of that I want to mention in a second. But it's got to be Kenny.
Yeah,
But
really.
we don't know when exactly he's going to be ready to go.
And I
Right,
keep
because he hasn't
reading,
been healthy for a long time now.
I
Yeah.
keep reading rumors he's going to show back up at the beginning of next year at one of the New Japan shows, big events, and then he might be able to be ready to wrestle sometime beginning of next year. Like I
Yeah,
just
so it's
don't.
like that's
Didn't
that's
he?
like
The
too
He
rumors
got
are
long.
injured,
so
came back and got injured again, didn't he?
well. He got
He got
injured.
diverticulitis.
Yes, when he
Okay,
came
so he
back,
got to.
then he got diverticulitis. Yes, so that's why he went out again because he got
Yeah.
sent to the hospital. I don't know if it was bad as Brock's, but I know it was pretty bad.
Yeah. It's like that's more than a I can't wrestle issue, you
Yeah,
know.
that's I
So
can't do a
So
lot of shit
just
issues.
to interrupt the AEW talk for just a moment.
Yes, go right ahead.
As I mentioned,
how dare
I'm
you interrupt the
currently
AEW talk?
watching the Crown Jewel PLE, and I just there is nothing about Bronson Reed that screams to me, put this guy on TV.
I like him.
Look, to me, Bronson Reed is the kind of guy that provides a contrast to what most of your roster is, and that he isn't a bodybuilder. He doesn't have the great physique and this and that. So there's definitely a spot for him on the roster. And I think that they've been booking him pretty well over the last few months with what he had been doing with Seth and then what he had been doing with Braun Strowman. And I can't really say any more since it sounds like you're watching that match right now.
That's okay. I'm sure he's going to beat Seth Rollins because Seth Rollins puts over a ton of freaking people. So if Rollins wins, I'd be surprised just because, like I said, that he puts over a lot of people. So if he wins, whatever. I don't really care who wins this match, but I just I will say this: Bronson Reed does give you a throwback to the Bam Bam Bigelows, the
Yeah,
Typhoons, the
which we haven't seen in a
tugboats
long time.
of that
Early
era.
Yokozuna,
Yeah,
Yeah,
early Yokozuna.
when
Like
Yoko still
so,
had his agility.
like I'm not gonna say that he doesn't have a spot on the roster, but he doesn't scream to me based on what I've seen somebody that should be on TV on a consistent basis. Maybe I just need to see more of him. But
Well, there is something to be said for that aspect, where sometimes with certain guys, you can't really have them on TV all the time. You need to kind of
yeah.
find a way to, like, try to, like, maybe like shuffle them in and out a little bit, where it's like, they have a program, they do whatever, then maybe they go away for a few weeks, or like, a pay-per-view cycle, or I'm sorry, a
because he
PLE
was brought
cycle.
up, I want to say relatively quickly from NXT. Like I don't feel like he spent a ton of time down there.
I don't know because I'm not an
Think
NXT
he
follower, so
spent
I
at
can't say.
least a year and a half down there.
That's a decent
Two.
amount of time then.
I'll
But yeah,
have to
there is
double
something to
check
be
or
said with when
ask
they have
AJ.
even with the roster being fairly well split. Not always, of course, as we've seen over the last few weeks with some like the Bloodline stuff, and obviously with what they've done with the Build a Crown Jewel, having the champion versus champion matches. But even with the size of the roster they have, they still do have a way where you can say, all right, you're feeling a little overexposed right now. We're gonna kind of dial you back for right now, but we're gonna think about what to do with you next, and we're gonna bring you back. I mean, so long as you don't think it's gonna hurt the person's stature, and some guys it won't, some guys it might. So that's the thing you have to figure out too. It's like
Yeah.
Seth Rollins is the kind of guy that you could say, all right, Seth, you can take a month off. And when he comes back, he's not going to be hurt in the least. I don't know if Bronson Reed's necessarily at that. If they keep building him as a monster, then yes, he could be. But you have like the Wyatt Six on the other hand, who I don't know if that works for because now they're all of a sudden they're back and they're targeting the Miz. So it's like
Yeah, they kidnapped the Miz. I
so it's
don't
like
know.
this is kind of how I thought it was going to be. It was like, oh, they had this great debut for the Wyatt Six where they murdered people who then were alive the next week. But I was like, but where is this going long term? And yeah, I still don't think they really know for that. So
Yeah. All right, back to AEW. I just wanted to mention that as I saw this match starting with Seth
yeah.
Rollins and
So
Bronson.
so so my whole thing is Kenny's the logical choice to do that because again he is like the EVP and everything as much as he may want to say I'm a terrible EVP and yeah we know the video game fucking sucked. Um
Worst thing since a WCW video game.
Hey, I
hey
played
most
that video game.
WCW
It
video
wasn't that
games were
bad.
I was
It
gonna
was
say most
fun.
WCW video games were pretty well received I recall. So the one I think was like the one that they said was like the standard for video games for a while. I can't remember which one that was. If it was WCW NWO Revenge or if it was World Tour, I can't remember.
Or
But
Mayhem. I don't
yeah,
remember which
I
one.
don't remember now. So
Might have been Revenge.
I might have to go back and watch some of the videos from the Wrestling Bios channel
I'm
when they
gonna say
review the
that they
old video
probably reaped the
games.
benefits of one being the number one show at the time,
Well, yeah.
and two just the excitement around wrestling because wrestling was very popular overall
Yeah, but
in
like
that time
the,
frame.
the company that WCW used for a couple of their like PS1 and 64 games, I think it was.
THQ.
I don't know if it was THQ for somebody else, but it was like they switched to doing WWF games then. So I don't remember if that was because they switched willingly or WWF stole them or WCW just said we're going to go with somebody else.
WWF's like, you will do our work exclusively, and I will give you $1 billion.
Well, yeah, that's what you do. That's
Pretty
business.
much.
That's
Thanks,
business.
thanks, Madden, for screwing the entire NFL freaking video game world.
Well, yes, but then what was that game that they did in like the mid 2000s that only cost like $20?
Football game?
Yeah, it was
That,
an ESPN branded game.
yes, that was
Because I remember I bought it and I thought it was pretty good.
I think that was the original 2K.
It may have
Yeah.
been, yeah, now that I think
But
about it.
then they got ESPN was taken off of it, and then the company like branded it as 2K Sports.
Yeah,
Somebody else took over the name and branded and made it 2K Sports and went in
yeah.
a whole different direction.
But I just remember it was like I think there was a slight growing like rumbling about Madden being in like the mid aughts there, and then this game came around again. They only charged $20 for it, where the standard price was 50. So, but yeah. But anyway, back to AEW. So yeah, Kenny would have to be the guy that comes back. But again, the problem is when is he going to be ready? Because how long can you keep dragging this shit out? Because it's like
Yeah.
I suppose you can if you have guys like Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin doing it, but you got to find ways to do it. And again, considering who AEW's booker is, I just don't know that they can. The other issue is that they've been talking about, well, when the Bucks come back, then they'll come back as faces. You can't have the Bucks come back as faces. They have unfinished business with Kenny.
Yeah.
You can't go do what you've done now with MJF and Cole.
Mm,
So,
I understand injuries hamper storylines. And
right, but then you can't just
sometimes you
you
can't go back to those storylines because of an injury.
right,
Sometimes you
like
can, but sometimes that just doesn't make sense. And I
one
don't
of the
think you're going to
biggest
get the
mistakes they've
payoff.
done, one of the biggest mistakes they've done recently is that as soon as Adam Cole came back, they had him turn face so that he can still oppose MJF, who has now become a heel. You could have done that in 6 months, but you didn't need to do it right away, and you shouldn't have done it right away because now they got the guys that were attacking MJF on behalf of Cole, as it turned out. All of a sudden, they're all faces now, except for Wardlow, who was on milk cartons.
I know he's injured with a shoulder or arm injury of some type, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
So this is the stuff that frustrates the hell out of me about AEW is that it's nonsensical. It just and it was funny because I was looking at I kind of lied when I said I didn't watch any of AEW this past week. I mean, I was focusing on the World Series game. Less said the better. But I was on a voice chat with two of my Yankee friends, and one of them is also a wrestling fan, and I was just occasionally talking about what was going on in AEW from what I saw. And then, of course, Lashley showed up at the end of the
Mm,
Swerve Benjamin match, and I
yep.
started going, "Oh man, I got." And my guy and my friend's like, "Yeah, if you don't like AEW, don't watch it." And I'm like, "Well, dude, it's not really that so much. It's they had something on AEW that I was legitimately interested in seeing. I was legitimately interested in seeing Shelton and Swerve because I said that should be a good match."
Yeah. Which it was.
And I said, and I knew Lashley was going to show up, and I just was kind of hoping that he wouldn't. Because unfortunately, I have never found Bobby Lashley interesting. He's obviously got always had a great physique, but I've never thought he was a particularly great worker, and I never thought he was particularly great on the mic.
His
He's
mic skills have are always been average. They got a little bit better
yeah,
when he was in TNA. I think he had better matches in TNA, in particular, from going back in his career. But
yeah,
I think he's a good worker, not a great worker. I think he's a good worker. But then we're showing the fans because people are going to criticize us saying he's only a good worker, and people are gonna be like, and the rest of it is no, he's a great worker because he does A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, which
I,
which I get. Well, listen, I get. I'm like, and this is why, you know, there are some in the wrestling business who thought, um, now I'm having a brain fart of her name, the one that got fired for doing her OnlyFans stuff.
Mandy Rose.
Yeah,
Yes,
Mandy
Mandy
Rose. Yep.
Rose. People thought she was a really good worker and she improved a lot. And there's a lot of fans who are like, how can you say that? And it's the flip side. I get it. Fans see one thing, the people in the business see another thing because they're seeing a different aspect of this wrestler than we see. We see what's on TV, they see the TV and they see everything else. So I get where the former wrestlers think she was doing a good job while others think she was not. So each is to their own, I guess, in regards to that.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
I was
and
about to, I
Lashley
was
kind of falls into that, but his there's times I think he's okay, and there's times I'm like, okay, he's there.
I was about to make a comparison between Bobby Lashley and the Ultimate Warrior, and then I realized that's not right because Ultimate Warrior was way too outlandish to really be compared to Bobby Lashley. But then I thought of somebody else who I think reminds me of Bobby Lashley in a lot of ways. And this is probably just me. Bobby Lashley reminds me a lot of Hercules.
Ooh,
Great physique,
ooh.
middling on the mic, could put on okay matches, but never any great matches.
He wasn't rocking any 4.5, 5-star matches. Understand, big guy, a lot of
Yeah,
muscles. It's hard to do that.
yeah. Um, and I'm not trying to diss on Hercules because I always generally liked Hercules. I mean, I know he was always a heel at first, but I always thought they did a great they had a great way of turning him face when they did, which was that Ted DiBiase tried to buy him from Bobby Heenan. And he is like, you can't buy me. And it's like this guy who had been like destroying people for like years with his chains and shit. Like, remember his attack on Billy Jack Haynes at their WrestleMania 3 match, for example.
Yep.
So it's like, how can you turn a guy like that face? Well, you have him stand up to the guy who's the bigger heel, which DiBiase, of course, was. And then you put him on the Survivor Series team with Hogan and Savage, which is what they did. And then you have him lose a couple months later to DiBiase on Saturday night's main event, and his push is over.
Hmm.
Then he's just there for like a year or so until they turn him heel again and do Power and Glory, who I know people love to diss on Paul Roma, but to me, Power and Glory was an underrated team and they had a great fucking finisher. So the
Yes, they did.
superplex splash combo.
Yeah, I liked it. I
But
think
they
they
had the
were.
disadvantage of being in the tag team division at the time of the Hart Foundation and the Rockers and the end era of Demolition and then the beginning of the Legion of Doom being there. So yeah,
Yeah, I thought they were a good tactic. I like
yeah.
them. 100%.
Yeah, and then they lost to Legion of Doom in a minute at WrestleMania 7.
I know.
But what I also remember about that match is, as short as that match was, my God, did it look like they killed Paul Roma when they did the Doomsday Device to him.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he got flipped so hard.
Yeah. Talking about selling something, that was oof.
So going away from wrestling, we talked about video games very briefly when it came to wrestling video games,
Yep,
but that
yep.
reminded me of, and we briefly kind of mentioned when you talked about 2K and the ESPN Sports series, and I had to go back and look because I'm like, I remember when that happened and how frustrated I was because I was not a Madden person, and I'm like, what was the last football game I played besides with my nephew because he loved football games. So he grew up in that era where there was only kind of Madden games. Ooh, WrestleMania 2000, THQ for the Game Stube.
No, that was N64.
Was it? It looked like it said GameCube on it.
Well, no, it couldn't be GameCube because GameCube was the little mini discs. That's a cartridge.
Oh, yep, there it is. There's the N64. I mistaken the
Yeah,
logo. All right.
N64 was the last cartridge console they did, right?
Yes. Yeah. I never played GameCube unless I simulated it on something. So
It was
Now,
the other
what's
one.
the most remarkable thing about? Okay, what are the two most remarkable things about that cartridge?
The one I just put up, the
Yeah,
NWO WCW Revenge.
yeah, yeah. What are the two most remarkable things about that?
isn't that isn't
It was
that
Raven.
yeah, Raven in the background?
How did Raven get on the cover? Number one, because the other ones are Hogan, Nash, and Goldberg, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
So think of all the other stars WCW, but somehow they let Raven on the cover.
I know.
The other one is the fact that that game is rated E.
E for everyone.
Yeah,
that's
so I guess
right.
that was before they found that wrestling content was too objectionable to get an E.
Yes. And this one is T for teen.
Right, that's what I mean. Because there's probably enough stuff that you can be like, oh, well, little kids shouldn't be seeing that, even though it was being marketed to little kids all the time.
Well, it took a mega stomp off the top rope to take down Bronson Reed, and he got busted open the hard way.
Yeah, but so that was so you've seen the end of that match now?
Yeah, that match is now over.
Yeah, so Seth won, so now it's like, okay, so all this buildup you did for Bronson Reed, what was the point? He lost the big match.
And
But it's at Crown Jewel, so it might not mean as much.
Well,
and
normally I would say that,
Seth
but
Rollins evidently injured himself doing that off the top rope because he's
but with
limping
what they've done as far as storylines for the Bloodline stuff, the Owens and Orton stuff, you can't totally dismiss this as, oh, it
No.
was just the Saudi show, you know?
Yeah. Maybe not so much for those, for Owens and Orton, the bloodline. This one, maybe a little bit per se. We'll see where
Yeah.
they go.
Well, so it'll depend upon what happens on Raw tomorrow night.
Yes.
So, as I was saying about video games, because I was not a Madden guy, I did like the ESPN 2K series. I was a 2K guy, and I remember playing it because, of course, they put not my favorite player, but they put an eagle on the front. Finally, they had Terrell Owens
Yeah,
on
that
the
was the game I
cover
was
of the
referring
last
to.
2K5 game, the last 2K game they put out for NFL because 2K5
That-
was the last one they did, and then after that, Madden bought all the rights to all the NFL stuff.
Yeah, that was the one I was referring to
Yeah,
because I
Okay.
remember it had T.O. on the cover. Yeah.
yeah, that was, and I loved that game. It was like the visuals were really good. The gameplay was nice and easy to do. Like
That game
I find
made
Madden.
Madden up its ante.
Yeah, that
Oh
was the whole
yeah,
thing. Between the way that they undercut them with the cost and the quality was good. It wasn't just like, oh, of course it only cost $20. It's a shit game. Yeah, it forced
It was
EA and
good.
Madden to, I think, to go, huh, we need to improve. It's the
yeah,
same way it was like, oh, now there's this show called Nitro. Oh, now they've got this thing called the NWO and they're kicking our ass in the ratings. We need to improve.
yeah. It's one of those things. Like I get the move that Madden did. I get it. I totally get it from a thing. But in this day and age of monopolizing the markets, isn't that a monopoly? Like no other game can create a football game that has any likeness to NFL players. Can't use names. Can't do this. Like it's
I don't think that would violate any kind of anti-monopolization rules because the NFL is still a private entity and it can license it out to whoever it wants. So I'm pretty sure
Right.
that's not illegal. Like it'll feel like it,
Well,
but
they have the money to do it.
it's not like because I
right. I
think
know
for
it's
it to
not
be not
necessarily a true monopoly, but it feels that way because of the fact that where else
because
you
of the
gonna, what other
licensing,
football
yeah.
games are out there? None.
Well, right, but that's just it. But it's like you can produce other football games. It's just, yeah, you can't use anything that's NFL licensed. So you wouldn't be able to use team names, player names, any of that shit.
Here is the Philadelphia Spiegels, and they have like weird colors and
Well,
like
no, they
a
wouldn't even be able to
pretend
get away
bird.
with that. They'd have to come up with completely new nicknames. Like, hey, they could
If
Yeah.
you
go they could go back to the USFL and have the Philadelphia Stars or whatever they were called,
It's just it's
if
just
you
one of those things because nobody would ever buy it because it'd be like, well, this is terrible.
if you think about it, that the whole 2K series in general between football, basketball, hockey, and even they had a baseball one too. Like it forced EA Sports to redo all their games. Soccer, forgot about soccer, sorry. It forced EA Sports to redo all that. If you look at the 2K franchise, I think the only one and I basketball is probably the only one that's left. The basketball one, 2K kept outshining EA Sports because the EA Sports NBA Live just for as much as they tried, they just could not surpass the 2K version of the NBA game, basketball
Well,
Yeah.
game.
yeah, I remember with EA back in the going back 20 years here again. EA had, I think it was called Triple Play Baseball for a while. And I remember I
Yep.
had a couple of those for the PC, and it was
They were
like
fun.
they were fun, but then they got less fun because they went over the top with like home run stuff. It was like you never had to doubt whether or not you would hit a home run because they had like the rocket launcher sound when you hit one out, and it was saying that every home run was like 490 feet for Christ's sake,
But then Acclaim Sports had this.
Well, it wasn't just that. I mean,
This was
as
fun.
we got more into the 2000s, there was it was high heat baseball. I don't remember what company produced that. I remember Kurt Schilling was on the cover of a bunch of
Yeah.
them. This wasn't like related to that Kurt Schilling video game company that horribly went bankrupt and essentially stole a lot of money from, I think it was the state of Rhode Island. That's another story. But high heat baseball, I remember I was like, well, this plays a hell of a lot more realistic than triple play baseball ever did. So again, I think that caused EA to have to go back and redo their baseball franchise
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you had
So
other games that were credible there. And of course the MLB licensed too. So,
And then, Xbox came out with their MLB The Show, and that just,
yeah, the show changed everything as far as baseball was. Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. So that was my favorite NFL game to play was the 2K game. And then I was like, huh, I used to like NBA Live over the 2K. I don't and see that's the difference. Like I don't hate the 2K basketball games. Like I don't want to say I hate Madden, but I would never buy a Madden game. Like I would never go out and purposely buy a Madden game just because I think it's ridiculous.
Like I
But
just I
personal,
just I just showed the NBA Live 2000 with Tim Duncan on it.
yes.
Like those once,
I'm trying to think the last one I played. I didn't even realize they went into 2018. Like they put
yeah,
out NBA Live 2019, which had Joel Embiid on the cover. Look.
yeah. So in regards to EA Sports, I felt like once the games went to the newer consoles, like so N64, like those games are fun to play on the N64, right? But like once they went to like not the original Xbox, kind of started maybe with the original Xbox and the PS2, that's where like the games for sports started taking off as far as the graphics and what you can all do in it. And that's where I think EA Sports, like Madden's still popular, FIFA Soccer still popular. Um, the hockey game is still popular to a certain extent, but they lost out on baseball. Um, and then they lost out on basketball. So they lost out those two big franchises in regards to them. But it's like NBA, the live and all that kind of like pushed off to the side. Plus, you know, when you're 2K and you're a Jordan fan and they put, you know, they make a special edition, you know, steel case with Jordan on 2K and he's on the cover like 3 times in 5 years. Yeah, you're gonna side with them.
Yeah, I
Well,
think the
And
yeah,
last
and I
because that
still
was the
have
thing
those
that I
games
remember.
and the
I rem-
cases for those Xbox.
yeah, and that was the thing, of course, going back to the 90s with video games, NBA Jam, NBA Live.
Oh, yeah,
Jordan
yeah.
wasn't in those games.
no,
The
he was
only
not.
game, and I have it, but I don't have it here. It's in storage. There was an NBA game. What was it called? Dr. J was on the cover of it, and it was old Dr. J with the afro. It was like a street ball version, and there was
Hmm.
3 Jordans in that game. You had it,
I don't remember
you
that game at all. Yeah.
you had to you had to unlock it, and it was kind of like you created your, I think you put your players and you had to go from city to city.
NBA
And
Street Volume 2.
is that
Is
what
that
it
what it
is?
was?
Yep, it's Dr. J and the old Nets in the New Jersey Nets
Yes. You had
New
uniform.
to,
Jersey Nets.
yes, you had to go city to city and play in all of these tournaments, and you got to unlock like legends of the game. And there was like
Ah,
I think 3 different Jordans in that
And there is a
game.
Jordan on the cover of that game too.
Yes.
And then
hmm.
some rando.
Because I think you were able to create a player. And that was
Did-
one of the you created your own player, and your player, you leveled them up and you played in all the different cities to get to. The reason I remember that game, one, it was awesome to play, and two, it was my favorite NBA. It was my favorite basketball game soundtrack because the
Yeah,
soundtrack was by Pete Rock, I
yeah,
think.
okay. Now you know what? Now that you put that up there, I do remember
Yes.
seeing that cover definitely.
Yep. The Dr. J, because
Yeah, because 2003. Okay, so that's a little later than what I was referring to, but the same principle apply. Like Jordan just wasn't in a lot of games around that time. But yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely do remember seeing that game because 2003. That would have been my last year working at Circuit City, so I would have seen it at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I remember Volume 1 because Iverson was in that game and it was ridiculous. Like you could do like almost Iverson could never almost turn over the ball. He was like his handle was that good on that game. But this is
It
I
was because he
think
got a lot of practice.
yeah. I think the last NBA Live game that I played was NBA Live 97 because I believe that one was still on the PS2. I think that was the last one that came out on PS2, I want to say.
the
No,
The
that was
last
last
one
before
that I remember playing.
PS2.
What's
I
that?
will
PS2 didn't launch until 2000 or 2001.
Okay,
So
yeah.
so that was still PS1 then. Okay. But
I
I remember these sweet graphics. I mean, look at those graphics.
well,
I
Mega digital.
the one next to it, the one that was the one I always remember. That kind of slight diagonal view.
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I know I played NBA Live up until 2002. And then
Hmm.
that's when I started going towards the 2K because they started changing it and the graphics were better. And I didn't play another NBA Live, I think, until like 2015. I bought a used game and I played it or something like that. And it
You were like, this is
was,
terrible.
yeah, who was on the cover? Dame Lillard. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
one.
Damian Lillard.
Yep. I played,
They had to settle for Damian Lillard.
I bought a used version of that and it was okay.
Well, you're really reaching deep. I mean, knowing what we know, what the heck's going on with the pictures? That was Westbrook, and then Joel Embiid. Like, I'm sorry, like I'm a Joel. I don't like Joel Embiid. And he came out today. He's crying about how the fans are treating him because he's not playing well. Then play a damn game. You know, you're how many games into the season now, and you haven't played yet.
5.
And that NBA Street game, there was Volume One was good because I think Volume One had Magic on it,
Hmm.
but the second one is the one that's worth the most money. Like I still have the case and the disc for the GameCube, and some people resell that game for anywhere from $100 to $200, depending on what type of condition it is. It's
Yeah,
crazy. Here is, let's see. This is
but
we're probably gonna get tagged for.
I just remember like the thing that I remember about the NBA Live game that I really liked is I feel like that was the first game that you could really go into detail like that version, like the 96, 97 version was the first game that I truly remember, and I'm sure there was other games, but you could really go in and do detailed work on the character that you were creating. Like you could create your own guy and like the facial, like you could change his hair, you could change the eyebrows. Like I feel like you could just do so much detail, and I was like, this is so cool. Like I remember spending so much time creating a character, and then doing his attributes because you could make him a mega shooter or a dunker, and like I remember making myself 5'7" and I could dunk. I was like, this is awesome.
So you could give him like real big, bushy, thick eyebrows. Is that what you're saying?
So he made
Yeah,
himself
like you had
5'7"
set
with a
eyebrows, like
52
you
inch
couldn't
Eyebrows that
vertical.
would come out to like here.
Yeah, like you could, like you had, they gave you set, I think it was set eyebrows, like you could pick like a different, like from 6 or 7 different eyebrows. It was just one of those
Eyebrows that
games,
were
like I felt
lethal
like you could
weapons.
really get to the point where you were like making a character that really looked like you. Before, of course, now where you can almost take a picture of your face and it'll port it into the game,
Yeah,
you know.
it's kind of one of the things that took the WWE franchise as far as create a wrestler and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Here's the soundtrack from that. I used to jam this out all the time. I love this stuff.
This soundtrack was awesome for this game.
Yes.
Absolutely. Reminisce, like.
We're gonna get tagged for playing this.
See, I was originally
And there's no
wondering.
lyrics. It was just the music. Like they didn't put the lyrics in. It was
No,
just
Yeah,
the
very,
music.
very few.
I was wondering if excuse me. I was wondering like when you first brought it up if the NBA Street Games were a direct consequence of White Men Can't Jump. Um, but obviously not exactly because the time frame doesn't match up because White Man Can't Jump I think was like 1991, 1992. So if those games were coming out until like a decade later, it's like, it wasn't like somebody said, "Oh, look, here's this movie that was fairly popular that was about street ball. We got to get a street ball video game out there."
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like those became the NBA Street Games became when was and one? When was the and one tours? Was that late '90s?
Sounds right.
Late 90s, early 2000s, pro.
Let me see. I'm gonna look it up real quick. Uh,
Late night.
98 to 2008.
Yep, yep. Late 90s into the early 2000s. Yeah.
And when was
So
NBA Street? NBA Street was 2003. So
yeah.
yeah, it was right in the height of the and one tour because I remember the and one tour being like a huge thing, and I think the professor was in it at that time. Like he was a big deal in the and one tours.
Yes.
So that game was a direct lineage to what was very popular and as far as
Hey,
basketball and what was being promoted at that point in time. So it makes sense that that game came out in 2003 at the height of and one
and
tour.
the NBA licensed it and made money off of it.
Oh
Like the
yeah, and
first
that's
game was
also
popular, but the second game is the one that like they made a lot of changes in the second game, and that game sold a shit ton of fucking copies.
yeah, and if you think about it too, that's when we started seeing the advertisements.
Mhm.
I feel like right around that time frame too, that 2003 2004 time frame is when we started to see the advertisements for uh the NBA guys doing street stuff, and like the whole Nike program changed. Like you saw, do you remember that commercial where they started showing the NBA guys like doing street moves and stuff like that?
Mhm.
So I feel like that's also that time where you started to see that, and that's why they were like, okay, the NBA's embracing the street ball life as far as like their ability to play at that, do all those crazy things that we normally don't see them do. And then of course that game comes out.
I feel like they made an NBA Street 3, but it didn't do as well because the roster was trimmed down. Because I feel like the second
Mm,
one was the one with the bigger roster than the first one. Uh,
I'm looking. I don't see. Oh, they have NBA Street Home Court, which was in 2007. NBA Street Volume 3, 2005. So yeah, they did have. They did have that.
So Jordan was supposed to be in the first one, but they took him out because he went back to playing for the Wizards. So he was supposed to be the final boss of the volume one. So he didn't make it into that one.
Final boss. Nice.
He
Don't
was
say those words.
he was well, that's what it says, or the final challenge per se. But he went back to playing for the Wizards, so they replaced him to beat a street legend called Stretch, which that is a real person. Um,
Yes.
so yeah. Where's the roster? Yeah, so the NBA Street is the first installment of NBA Street series. It was followed by Street Volume 2, Volume 3, and then NBA Street Home Court. It was supposed to be a similar
Um,
style to NBA Jam, but more street oriented, of course, though. I'm looking for the rosters. That's what I want to know. And this got even the first game got really good reviews. Super good reviews.
Oh, I remember NBA Ballers too. I never played that game, but I remember that game coming out.
Ballers was okay. Yeah, it's weird. It doesn't have the roster for the first one. I just know I played the first one and the roster was not as vast as the second one.
No, the second one was definitely. I don't remember. I don't think I remember playing the first one. I definitely remember playing the second one though. Like that was the game to play. And like I said, Iverson's handles were ridiculous in that.
Yes, in
So I might
addition
have
to
just.
Street Legends, players can all this is for two. Players can also unlock legends, including Larry Bird and Julius Erving. At the end, I think this was the first time Jordan was back in any video game since the late 90s NBA Live games. The game of the at time of the release was the only available game on the market in which three incarnations of Michael Jordan are playable: the '85 Chicago Bulls Jordan, the '96 Jordan, and the Wizards Jordan. It is possible to play as a team made up of all three Jordans, which once I unlocked all three of them, that's all I did was I was triple. It was a triple Jordan threat for me every single game. I didn't care. The game also features an in-game soundtrack with tracks from the artists Nate Dogg featuring Eve, Pete Rock, and CL Smooth, Eric Sherman featuring Redman, Benzino, MC Light, Black Sheep. Wow, Nelly. Wow, there's a lot of. Here's the soundtrack. Not in My House, Nelly, Get Up, Nate Dogg, React, Eric Sherman, Redman. I love that song. Rock the Party, Ride with Me, MC Light. Chief Rocka, Lords of the Underground. The Choice is Yours, Black Sheep. The Reminisce. Yeah, super awesome game. Now, the only thing that sucks is I don't have a GameCube anymore. But
oh,
as
here it is.
but since I showed you those guys, those N64 games. Um, two of those games are the original games that I bought when they first came out. I still had when I got rid of my GameCube, I had like six controllers. I kept three of them because I had three of the clear versions. So I kept them. But I found a website called OK Oldies where they sell old video game systems. So there's they repurpose them, clean them up, make sure everything is working properly, all that stuff. So I got an N64. They had a Black Friday sale. I got it for 2 years ago for like $74. And it works awesome. No complaints. Um, Bought the expansion Rumble pack. And because otherwise you can't play Donkey Kong 64 without the expansion Rumble pack, in the system. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's been fun playing the 64 games. I'm kind of in that thing where I kind of want to get old video game systems again and kind of
Hmm.
play them from time to time because I played the 2000 and you can create wrestlers, you can create your own belts and factions in that game. So I created us as characters in that game for the CWA. Oh, which is the hilarious part. But yeah. Oh, that was fun. Reminiscing about some video games. I'll play the 64 from time to time. It's fun playing some of these games. 100%. I have one of the Star Wars games, Rogue Squadron. That's fun to
Hmm.
play on there too, on the 64.
You know what's funny? I had the Rogue Squadron 64 game for PC,
Hmm.
and then Rogue Squadron 2, I think they called it, was one of like the GameCube launch titles. And that was, really good too. But I was like, I kind of didn't like that it wasn't as long as
Mm,
Rogue
yeah,
Squadron 64 was. So I remember then it was like after like getting used to playing Rogue Squadron 2 on the GameCube and everything, I went back then and started playing the Rogue Squadron on the PC again. And yes, I had the controller with the, with the joystick and everything.
I'm not mad at you.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't play that game on the PC otherwise. You
No,
you couldn't play that game with keyboard and mouse. Come on.
no, 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 not that game. It,
But as soon as I turned it back on, I went, "Oh my God, these graphics are shit."
it is
And I'm like, damn
challenging
it, they need
going
to
back.
re-release this game on GameCube with upscaled graphics.
It's hard going back and playing some of those games with the old graphics. I sometimes playing this, it's some of these 64 games, it's a challenge. Well, what you're used to, then going back to that stuff, but it's still fun. It's still
Yep.
fun.
Overly pixelated games.
I found some vintage. There's a place called Hidden Block video games. And they do a plethora of things. They sell old systems. They have old games for like a lot of the systems. They sell Pokemon cards. They do all that stuff, but they legitimately have a case in the back where they get like the video games from the different systems that are actually worth money, like
Hmm.
the collectible ones. And I sat there one day, me and Nico went, I'm looking, I'm like, holy shit, some of these games I've played and had, and I just traded them in because back then we didn't know like what we didn't think collecting video games was going to be a thing per se. And I'm like, I just kept
I still
games
don't.
from I, I kept some of those the games I kept for the 64. Like I still have some GameCube games that I they were my favorites. But some of these games I'm like are worth seven, eight, $900. I saw one that was like $1,500. It's just like that's crazy. It's just insanely crazy. Like Nico has a GameCube game, not GameCube, a DS game, the handheld. Uh that it was a series of four. He has all four of them, but one I think is the second or third version of that game. It's worth like $600. And I was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "I'm curious to see what all four of them are worth. You probably have $1,000 worth of games in the storage and in the cases." Like
Hmm.
it's crazy how some of these games get to be a value in
Right,
that
and it's
manner.
sometimes it's just like with the NBA Street Volume 2. You know, it's the only version of that game that has Jordan in, I think, in it. So now if you want to be able to play that game with Jordan, the only way to get it is to have that game. So it becomes a collector's item where people are like, "Oh
Yeah.
shit, I gotta have that." Like
And then Jordan didn't show back up in any video game until
2K something. I can't think of what
yeah, I think
2K
it
it is because he
was
became a legend in that game. It was a legend unlock, if I remember correctly. Like you can unlock him as a legend.
yeah, and they had the NBA 2K series. I think it was like 14 or 15, maybe 16 is when they brought him back too for that because they started doing like they were doing like the decade teams, like the Bulls of the 90s and then like the Lakers of the 80s. They were putting like specific like the 85 Lakers or 84 Celtics or whatever the case may be. And like the 92 Bulls were in there. And you can have like those teams match up against each other. They were started doing all that stuff. So that's when they started 2K started bringing out the licensing for the legends and putting those old teams back in there. But it's fun times. Fun freaking times. Indeed.
So
So no.
you had to mention it.
What?
Mention what?
What I
You
mentioned.
mentioned the final boss. So, because I was finally approved for membership in the official Cult of Cornet Facebook group, and
Oh,
it took
yes,
about a
yes, you
year or
were.
so for me to get approved.
Well, they wanted to make sure you weren't a troll. They really
Ah,
went through the trolling process. They're
well, the
like,
funny thing was that in my like kind of like prove you're not a troll or prove that you should belong in this group kind of thing, I made mention of the incident, and I apologize ahead of time because it's his birthday. I made mention of the incident where when AJ was still on with us, and I referred to the Young Bucks as the Cucamonga Kids, and he got really pissy with me
yes.
Yes.
because that's it is a nickname that Cornette uses much and very derisively so towards the Bucks. But I was just like, so like I just made mention of that incident. Like, well, I do a podcast with some friends, and I called the Bucks the Cucamonga Kids, and it got my one Buck fan friend really, really mad at me. Doesn't that prove I should belong to this group? Anyway, so
That's
scrolling
hilarious
through.
that you put that in.
I mean, I figured that was a good way to say it.
It just put,
Anyway,
hey, do what you got
so
to do to get into a group, I guess. I know that's what it is.
I was scrolling back through some posts from like recent days, and I found a thing where somebody posted somebody's tweet, which was a retweet from the Hollywood Handle, which has a blue check mark, so I guess it's a trade thing of some sort.
Okay.
And it was referring to the upcoming movie Red One with
The
Dwayne
Rock.
and Chris Evans and J.K. Simmons.
Yes.
And it says Red One, starring Chris Evans and The Rock, reportedly has a budget of $253 million.
Jesus.
The
A lot of
film is
special effects
currently
in those
tracking to
movies.
open with $36 million domestically. And it opens
That's
in two
terrible.
it opens in 2 weeks, I believe. Now, translation for those and like the retweet then was somebody saying, I cannot think of another theatrically released film that so powerfully emanates Netflix original energy. And the irony is that I believe this was originally going to be a Prime
Bring those scissors. I want to see those
movie.
scissors.
And then they decided to release it theatrically, probably because of the price tag.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
scissors
and
are
anyone,
those?
the,
Oh,
the, the
okay,
guy
those
who
are
posted
your.
here, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Okay,
isn't this
those are
the
your
production
scissors.
Jim and Brian were talking about a few months ago that had to be delayed several times
Please be
due to The
careful
Rock
with
showing up
the
hours late
sticks.
or just not showing up at
Not
all?
swing them at each
And
other
yes, it
or anything. Okay.
is. They were
Gotcha.
talking about how
Sharpening.
that there was already like stories about how The Rock was basically a diva on set,
Oh, you're
would
just
hold up the
random
production
places
for
you're trying
hours
to
on
sharpen
end
them.
because he was working out. Um, Also, this was the thing
Okay.
I think where they said he supposedly would have people there on set to handle his pee
No, no
bottles
paint.
because he couldn't be bothered to
Yes, you can
go
use some of your
relieve
markers.
himself in a bathroom
Don't
somewhere.
use your
He would
really
like
good ones. Use
go
some of
on set and
the
have
That
somebody
is,
then
Crayola
remove
ones.
his piss.
that is,
This is one of the things that's gotten me very negative about him
Could you
because
guys hear
these
all that? I was
stories
just
these
talking to my
stories
son.
have
I
sounded
apologize.
completely
a little, not
legitimate.
all of it.
Yeah. These stories have sounded completely legitimate and everything. But anyway, the whole point then I was trying to make with this, if this movie reportedly has a budget of $253 million, that's just the production budget. That doesn't include things like duplication of the film to be sent out to all the theaters where it's going to be shown. And the big one, marketing. Because all those times you see a trailer on TV, that costs money to have it out there. So if it costs that much, just the production, and it's only on track to make $36 million domestically, which means that domestically its best hope is to top out at one around like say 120 million, unless it does keep playing successfully throughout the holiday season, which it could, because Christmas movies can be leggier like that when you open them far enough away from Christmas.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this is on track then to be a major, major flop. And that would just be another one on his list of major flops that he's had recently. I think his star has once again faded quite a bit. The problem is WWE right now is very much propping him up.
Yeah. It,
Um,
it, it's one of those things like they're
yes.
trying Hollywood, I don't know. I'll say this. They're trying to keep The Rock in the limelight and hope that his star power will bring in people. And I think they're doing the right thing as far as who they're putting in the movies because Chris Evans is a draw. Uh, JK is
Simmons.
Simmons, I don't want to say as a draw, but he's a very well known actor. Like as far as like the roles that he's been in, like if you know his career now, like he was in that was the movie called Whiplash. I think it was called Whiplash. Was that
Yeah,
it?
he won
He
an
was
Oscar for that.
He was, he was um
Yeah,
Jonah in
yeah.
the Batman, the Spider-Man movies, the first set of Spider-Man movies. He was
Well,
Jonah.
it's funny you should say Batman because if you remember, he did play Commissioner Gordon in Justice League.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, J.K.
he's
Simmons is
had,
very well thought of. He's not
yeah,
like a
he's
box office draw per se, but
right.
he is very well thought of.
But if you were somebody who likes J.K. Simmons, you may be drawn to that movie as far as like see what he brings in it. But he's only in a small part. I don't want to. I shouldn't say that because we don't know how big of a part it is. But he's playing Santa who gets kidnapped. How often are we going to see him on the screen?
Right.
Yeah.
Like his
That
role,
though,
as far as like screen time, is going to probably be very small.
yeah. That though I think is the biggest issue with this movie. The movie is about Santa Claus getting kidnapped, and The Rock is supposed to be an elf who's charged with like bringing him back and everything, but that's not enough. They have to go get Chris Evans, his character, who apparently is like a great tracker or something. Um, but the things that the trailers don't explain and why I think that this movie is going to miss the mark is why was Santa Claus kidnapped? By
Who
who?
kidnapped him? Who
For what
kidnapped him
purpose?
and
Why
why?
is there this big elaborate system with giant elves and talking polar bears? Why is Santa Claus thin?
And muscular.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's this just strikes me as being a little too,
Does he put on
for
weight
most
for the
people's
day of
taste.
Christmas and magically just works out for one day and it goes away?
But yeah, it's
I'm
like
confused.
the selling point of this movie, according to the trailers and everything too, is supposed to be like the special effects and everything, and then it's like it
Okay.
looks like it's too much, which is probably also another reason why this movie costs so goddamn much to make.
Well,
Yep,
yeah,
100%.
definitely. I mean,
Yeah, it's like why are they fighting
you just see with the
snowmen?
snowmen.
Yeah, why are they fighting snowmen on a tropical beach?
Aren't the snowmen supposed to be on their side?
Well, yeah, that's what you would think, right?
Why aren't you like,
Unless they're the abominable snowman,
And you know what the great tragedy of this is?
the Great Yeti.
what's that?
I'm gonna have to go see this shit because my dad wants to see it.
Ha sucker.
Your dad wants to see it?
Yes, I've tried to talk him out of it repeatedly.
So what's his reasoning that he's told you why he wants to see this movie?
I really don't know for sure. I think it's because he likes Christmas so much, and I think it's because he still likes Dwayne, even though I've tried to explain to him what a prick he's been. Um, and he likes Chris Evans.
Yeah, okay.
Like when I first told him that Chris Evans was playing Captain America, his first question, way back when, his first question to me was, "Who?" And his second question was, "Really?" After I explained to him who Chris Evans was,
Uh,
but Chris Evans won him over as Captain America pretty quickly, so
yeah.
he's been a big fan of his ever since.
I will say he did a good job of playing the Fantastic Four too as what was it, Johnny?
Johnny Storm.
That's like yeah, Johnny Storm.
Yes, he was great in DP3.
Ooh, that reminds me, that comes out on Disney Plus, what, the 12th of this month?
Yeah, my dad, like I made reference to Deadpool and Wolverine the other day when I was talking to my dad and reminded that he didn't see it because he pussed out on me the day he was supposed to come here to see it with me. And I was like,
Yes.
"Oh, don't worry, it'll be on Disney Plus, I think later this month. You can finally see it."
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
waiting for it to come on Disney Plus. They have it up there like that you can like watch the trailer. I'm like, I don't want to see the trailer. I want to see the movie.
Well,
My
they have
son
to
wants to
have
see it too. I'm like, no, you can't see that movie. That's not allowed. You're not allowed to see that movie. Why? Because it's
who wants
rated
to
R.
see it?
Yeah, because it's rated R, son.
Who wants to see it?
Lucas.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
your
just
son? Yeah,
Deadpool. It's okay.
I couldn't really recommend.
Speaking of
Yeah.
movies, me and Nico are going at 1:30 to see Venom: The Last Dance,
Venom: The Last Dance was eh.
which is kind
Well,
of
now,
funny.
well, they're in another universe. Like they've
Yes.
drifted into one of the multiverse worlds for themselves, right?
No, they always were.
Yeah, they always were. They ventured over into Tom
Well,
Holland's
what I mean is
Spider-Man verse at some
the
point.
original two movies were set in a different universe, and then from Spider-Man and everything like that. And then in the end of the second one, they end up in a world that has Spider-Man, and
Yeah,
that's
they
where
go.
this third movie picks up.
No, the third movie's you saw it,
Yes.
Pat. Yeah.
Okay, because this isn't a real big spoiler. The opening shot, the opening scene of Venom 3, I'll just call it to be short. Tom Hardy is still in the
MCU.
MCU, and he very quickly gets sucked back to his own
Oh,
place.
okay. So he goes back to his own universe.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
because like at the end of Venom 2, he got sucked into what's the MCU.
right.
And then because they also did the crossover thing where Michael Keaton's Vulture got sucked into that universe in Morbius, which
Hmm.
obviously is not going to have any more impact because I don't think they're ever going to do anything there.
No.
And then so he gets sucked back into his own
Okay.
universe.
And you got to think about too, the other movie that's coming out in December is the other Sony Spider-Man crossover, or whatever the
Yes,
fuck it
the
is.
Craven the Hunter
Craven.
movie, which
Craven
I
the
saw the
Hunter.
trailer for finally when I saw Venom. I was like, yeah, actually, it looks interesting.
And that's going to be rated R as well, because that's got a
It's gonna be it's gonna be a bloody.
it's going to be a gory blood fest with that guy.
Yeah.
So we'll see
Yeah,
where.
it's Deadpool and Wolverine November 12th on Disney Plus, so that is a week from Tuesday.
Yeah.
Also known as my sister's birthday.
Oh,
Say
so
happy
exciting.
47th birthday to my sister. Or don't.
Oh,
She's not listening, so I don't give a shit.
I'll be nice and say happy 47th birthday early.
Happy 47th. Oi. God, that's next year. I don't want to think about that.
Well, I'll be 44 in February, but yeah, my younger sister will be 40 next July, and so I'm like, yep, we're all old now officially.
I'll be 40. I'll be 48 next spring. Yeah.
I mean, my oldest niece is a teenager now. It's just
Mhm.
I know your kids are older, but it's hard to think,
Listen,
I still have hope for my son in the teenage years to see how that goes. Right now, there's no. I have. I know this is not to sound horrible, but I only see my daughter with the current level of attitude that we get and the degree that we have with her that it's only going to be hopefully it'll stay the same, but I see that kind of continuing to go up slightly until she reaches about 17 where it'll max out hopefully and then it'll come back down.
Well, the thing that I
good luck
always
with that
heard,
one.
the thing that I always heard that I was always told was that for teenage girls, 15 was the worst year. But I don't really know if that's true.
Yeah, we'll see. She wants to get a job. She wants to get a job at 14, so she can start saving for a car. I'm like, yeah, okay, if that's what you want to do, if you think that's necessary. Um, and she's going to work at a local salon. Her one cheer coach owns a salon, so she's like, I can wash hair and take schedule appointments, and I'm like,
Hey,
okay,
that's a
yeah,
start. That works.
sure, sounds good.
What you're
Um,
gonna get out of your son is when he gets a little older and in high school, the late middle school into early high school, it'll be, you know, the small blunt attitude. And when you make a comment to him, he'll be like, okay, okay, I heard you, okay. And I said
that's
to
what I get
Nico the
with
one
Dal.
time, I said to him, like, if you say okay to me like that one more time, I'm gonna smack you upside your head so goddamn hard it's gonna put you back in at 5 years old. I was like, I cannot stand that shit with a passion. Like, there's some things that just irk the shit out of me. And I'm like, would you just say, can you just say yes? I understand. And not just okay. I'll slap that okay so fucking hard off your face right now. Like,
Well,
I hate it.
the phase
Yeah, I
I'm hoping
mean,
to get out of right now is they're both in this. They like to blame each other for
Something they
who
did.
started the fight. And that age difference is so hard because of them being 5 years apart. It's so hard because he does stuff unintentionally and sometimes intentionally. I know he does sometimes intentionally, but most of the
Of
time it's
course.
unintentionally that annoys my daughter. And then my daughter snaps at him and tries to reprimand him. I'm like, you're not the parent. Stop it. If you've got a problem and you ask him nicely to stop, then you come to us. I don't want to have to tell on him. Well, that's just tell us what the problem is and we will correct it.
Or just
Like
leave
if
the
it's an
room
actual
and
problem.
leave him alone.
Yeah, or just you have your I shouldn't have to go to my room. That's I shouldn't have to go to my room. You have a room for a purpose. Okay? That's why you have a room. So you can go be by yourself if something's annoying you. You're only sitting on your phone anyways. You're not doing anything. It's not like you're using the TV or anything. Like you're only on your phone and you're being annoyed. So go to your room and be on your phone. What's the big deal? But that's oh God, I shouldn't have to do that.
Heaven forbid I go to my room.
So yeah, it's those things. And then she'll do stuff to him knowing that he hates it. And then she'll be like, I don't know why he's getting mad. I'm like, because you're annoying him. The same thing you complain about, you are doing to him right now.
Yep.
No, I'm not. I talk to him and he always likes it and then he gets mad. I'm like, yeah, because you overstep like what you're doing initially, and then you try because she likes to pretend like he is her stunt doll because of like she likes to do all these cheer things. So like he's like gotta be the kid that because she can lift him up. Like, oh, do this, and he's like, I don't want to do that. Just do it. If you do it, I'll do this. And then she never does the thing that she says she'll do.
Of course not.
Like
What a
you're
little con artist.
like you are
Bribery.
so terrible. But then there's other times where they're like, "You're so awesome. You're the greatest brother ever. You're the greatest sister ever." Like they went out and went on the trampoline and they had a lot of fun and they didn't come in. Nobody cried. Nobody was yelling at each other. And they were out there for probably a good half hour or so playing don't touch, don't touch the ball. Like that's the game. They put a bunch of balls on the trampoline and you can't get hit by the ball. If you get hit by the ball, you're out. You know, stuff that sounds really safe, because jumping on a trampoline and then landing on a ball sounds like a great idea.
Yeah,
Broke
we
my
did
ankle. What were you doing? I was playing the trampoline. How'd you break your ankle? I was playing and I stepped on a ball.
Hey, we did worse in our age, I guess, for the most part.
What's funny is you were I think you kind of said it, but my question back to you was yeah, when you're talking to like a teenage girl, especially like a younger teenage girl, and like you like ask them a question or tell them to do something, isn't the first thing that they say always
Yes.
something like that, Like, I
Really,
can't believe you're
Dad?
asking me that. I can't believe you're telling me to do that. Oh, oh.
Like they have more important things to do, like nothing.
Yeah, they have more important things to do. What they want to
I
do.
always get the really, Dad, right now? Yeah, right now. I hope they're
Yep.
done coloring sticks. Right now, my son and his friend are sharpening sticks.
Are they going to go out and attack people with pointed sticks?
Well, he said
Worse.
he wants to be able to stick it in the ground so he can grow a tree. I'm like, well, that's not how a tree grows, but okay. Yes.
Next thing you know, they bring out a
Nobody's coming in
crossbow.
right now.
They're going vampire hunting.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
You might want to zip your jacket up, dude. You might want to zip that up.
It's going to be warm again up
Mm.
here. And I don't know what it's like down there in North Carolina for you, Mr. Joe, but
It's very random. Like today, it's supposed to be, I think, in the 60s. Then we're going back up to the mid to high 70s. Then we're going back down again. Like it's like a roller coaster right now this past month.
yeah, like it was like
But the
80
mornings
We're all
have been
gonna
in
get
the
the
40s
flu.
and 50s.
Yeah, it was like 80 degrees here on like Thursday, like on Halloween, and
Yeah, yeah.
Friday was still pretty warm too. I think they said it might have,
81 for
if it
Halloween
wasn't
for
record
us.
highs, it was close to record highs. Today it says it's gonna be high 61, and then tomorrow says 64, and then Tuesday and Wednesday 72 and 74. Look, I love 70-degree weather, but it's not supposed to be 70 degrees in early November in Pennsylvania. It's just not.
No.
And like looking out, like extending it all the way out to the 17th. Now, obviously, predictions and conditions will change in 2 weeks, but not a day under 55
Yeah,
through
I can't.
mid-November.
I'm sure it's been this warm in the past, but I can't remember it.
No, I don't think it has. I'm pretty sure every year again, it's the average global temperature has been higher. It's been like
Yeah.
that for like several years now.
So
So
today, so today the high is going to be 68, but like Monday, 70, Tuesday and Wednesday, 79, 79, Thursday, 76, Friday, 69. Then we're going back down to like the low 70s for a good week and then drop into the 60s. But every morning, it's going to be in the 50s pretty much every day, except for those two hot hot 70, high 70s days. It'll be a 61 in the low 60s when I wake up. But yeah, listen, uh, whatever people want to believe about global warming, atmosphere changes, this, that, and the next thing, it is what it is. But when you're up north where you guys are and where I formerly lived, and it's staying this warm this long into, the fall time or into November, yeah, yeah, there's things that have definitely changed.
Yeah, and the other issue too is I don't know what
Definitely
it's been
wasn't
like.
this warm last year in November, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know what it's like down where you are, but we're up here. We're pretty much under like an extreme drought.
Oh, there's a
Oh,
fire right over
Yeah, there's been
oh,
like
I
fire
10
heard it.
miles
warnings.
from me.
I
Yeah, I
heard
heard
about the
about. I think I
fire.
heard about that. I was gonna say there's been like fire warnings like constantly. So
Yeah, I heard about the fire up there by you, Jeremy. Yeah, my
Yeah, it's
sister-in-law posted.
right on the mountain there
Yeah,
when you're going down 248 towards Lehighton,
yeah.
in
yeah,
between Lehighton and
I
Pomerton.
saw
That
somebody
bad.
somebody I know on Facebook posted about it. So
Because my brother-in-law and sister-in-law live up in Jim Thorpe, and she took a video while she was driving to work, um, of the what was going on in the mountains and all that jazz. Yeah, we've actually been. It's weird. We've been in kind of a drought too. We haven't had rain in a while. Tomorrow, I think, or overnight is when we're supposed to actually get a chance of rain overnight, but then tomorrow, um, and Wednesday, well, Tuesday and Wednesday is when we're supposed to get some rain. But yeah,
Yeah,
we've
it's
definitely been
gonna.
in that drought.
Well, yeah, there's Jersey's got a really bad fire going too. They have a really bad fire right now, and they
yeah,
evacuated people.
yeah, because it was like
It's just way too dry.
yeah, like about 20 minutes or so ago now, I heard fire trucks, or fire sirens. At least I would have to assume they were. I don't think those were emergency sirens, but I was like, I'm saying to myself, where are they going? So
Oh yeah, you never know.
you know, the last thing I would need is for somebody to all of a sudden say, you're gonna have to evacuate because there's this fire that's coming, and I'd be like, yeah, so I'm gonna lose all my shit because some irresponsible fucker in the woods.
Well, evidently over by my parents' house, people were setting off fireworks.
Yeah, oh my,
That's a smart thing to do at this time of the year,
yeah,
with
Jesus
with the
Christ.
with the lack of rain. Anytime you're in a drought is not the best time to be setting off fireworks.
I'm sorry, if somebody were to be
Nope.
doing that, if somebody were to be doing that right now, this could be controversial, but if you caught somebody's doing something like that right now, I'm sorry, you're arrested. You should be arrested for that shit. So,
It's just not smart.
no, it's not.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then again, if there's one thing I've learned over my 43 plus years, it's that people are not smart.
No,
People are not smart.
nope,
So,
nope.
not to bring it back to wrestling, but I have to.
Yes.
Oh, here we go.
So, a couple of days ago, Cage Side Seats, actually, it was just yesterday, had an article where apparently Marco Stunt
Not Marco Stunt.
announced that he is retiring from wrestling.
Should have done that a long time ago. Go ahead.
Now, I have nothing personally against Marco Stunt. I have a lot professionally against Marco Stunt. Namely, being that it was utterly fucking ridiculous for him to ever appear on television for a wrestling promotion. So, in the comment section on the Cage Side Seats article, I posted, I'm not sure to go with, and there was much rejoicing from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, or if a tree
Hold up.
falls in a forest and no one is there, does it make a sound? Meaning, does anybody really give a shit that he's retiring? Actually, both work, don't they? Well, to my surprise,
Oh no, here we go. I want to
There was
hear
people that are
this.
Marco Stunt lovers.
this set off a couple of people.
Of course, there's always one
So
or
real quick
two.
before you get into those comments,
Whew.
so this triple threat match for the United States Championship,
Uh-huh.
LA Knight went to jump up on the ropes for some type of Tower of Doom move that they were doing. He missed the rope and nutted himself. It's like, oops, that was not smooth. All right, now on to the comments section.
Yes. Um, So yeah, apparently this set off a few people. Now I got to be perfectly honest with you here. Those are my true feelings about Marco Stunt. Who fucking cares that he's retiring? Okay.
I get it. Each is to their own.
Look,
That's fine.
if you're gonna take that as I'm a prick, fine. I can't do anything about that. Was I trying to be a prick?
Yes.
Maybe.
Ten
I don't know.
percent
I
of
really don't
ten
remember what
percent of your
exactly my.
comment, probably.
No, I'm serious. I don't remember exactly what my state of mind was when I posted this. Was I saying like, "Oh, fuck this guy," or I just want to make a funny comment? I don't really remember how I was thinking. But anyway, somebody replied, "Boo. Go with Stunt was awesome. He paired really well with Jurassic Express and got the crowd behind him. He obviously put a lot of work into wrestling, and it was cool that he had a chance to shine in a major wrestling company." 17 people liked that comment. And I just replied, "Well, I absolutely disagree with all of that, so why would I say it?" Another
He
person
was a
replied,
joke. I'm sorry. He was a joke in AEW. He
yeah,
was a comedy skit.
yeah. And another person then replied to that guy's, this, you should have said this, saying, and if you can't bring yourself to say that, saying nothing is also an option, which 14 people liked. And yes, I will agree. And I replied to that guy. I said, yes, it is. But I was in a mood to speak. Somebody else replied, if the goal is to look like a jerk on the internet, then yes, they both work. Both of my comments. And I said, it's not the goal, but I don't care if I do. Guy replied to that saying, we already know. And I replied to him saying, if there's one thing I've learned from comment boards, it's that someone will always take something you say the wrong way. Not much you can do about that, so there's no point worrying about it.
Correct.
And the last guy replied, you sound like a douche either way.
Ooh.
And I said,
Hurt my
I'm
feelings,
really
why don't you?
not. But I'm just not going to shed any tears or have any fond memories about a guy who no reputable wrestling company would have ever allowed in the ring. And look,
At that level, no.
and this is what I'm trying to get at here. It's a Gordon Ramsayism. I'm not being personal. I'm being professional. And yes, I know I'm not a professional in the wrestling industry, but anybody with two fucking eyes and a functional brain can see that Marco Stunt should have never been inside of a fucking wrestling ring. But that's how big this is. He is one of the reasons I couldn't take AEW seriously from the start and still have lingering issues to do with it doing so to this day. Now, most of those issues now are because of the fact that Tony Khan's booking and every other damn thing. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, I gotta admit, I was genuinely surprised this many people were jumping on my case because I was belittling Marco Stunt professionally.
Did anybody agree with you?
There was only one person liked my first comment. A couple people like some of my responses, but like not as much as like the guy who was like, "Oh, his stunt was awesome. He paired really well with Jurassic Express." I should reply to that guy. I'm sorry, I stopped reading it. Stunt was awesome.
Oh
Yes, it's
man.
great for him that he got to wrestle on television for a wrestling company, but it lasted about as long as it does for me to get a haircut, and which is 5 weeks. And it was so pathetic. And if you have an issue with that, I'm sorry, okay? We just disagree on the way things should be in wrestling. I'm not gonna fucking apologize for having that opinion, okay?
And here's the thing. Like, we've watched enough wrestling collectively between all of us that there are certain people that I should say should never rise above the indie scene, and that's an okay thing. Not everybody is meant to be on the big stage on a big television promotion, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's the same way with any sport. There are certain guys you will only achieve a certain level. You do not have the skills to play at the premier level of basketball, such as in the NBA.
Bronny James.
We have seen I was just about to include Bronny James, and anybody can dispute that if they want to and say no, he deserves it. He is a G League player at best at
Right
this
now.
point in time in his
He's
career.
gonna win Rookie of the Year.
So, that's just the sad truth about any sport, and wrestling is the same way. Wrestling is an entertainment sport where unless there are certain guys that Rey Mysterio was the obs- wow,
Exception.
exception, not the obsession, the exception to the rule where he was 5'7", 5'6", 5'6", 5'7", 100 and something pounds, but he had something that anybody that watches wrestling can definitely say that Marco Stunt did not have. He had a really good skill set, and he was entertaining in the ring at all times. There was never a match in his early career before he really got on the mic and started speaking that he did not have a really good match that you would enjoy watching. I I couldn't
Yeah.
even say that about Marco Stunt because prior to TNA, I mean prior to AEW, I didn't even know who Marco Stunt was. Like at least I knew who Rey Mysterio was from his WCW exposure and his lucha stuff that he did prior to WCW. Like most
Yeah.
people knew who Rey Mysterio was before he even stepped foot on WCW.
Yeah, he had had a cup of coffee in ECW before WCW stole him. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. That too.
you know,
But yeah,
and
it's
WCW made him into obviously they didn't let him get to like main event level, but everybody knew who he was when he was in WCW. And
Marco
shit,
Stunt.
everybody knew who he was in WCW from when Kevin Nash turned him into a lawn dart.
Oh yeah, pretty much. I mean, the thing with Marco Stunt is like great. He did what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a pro wrestler for his size and stature. Kudos to him for making a name for himself on the indies, pairing himself up with, you know, Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy using their old names. But at the same time, you know, Tony Khan gave him the opportunity to be on live TV. Awesome. But you can tell from the start that he was not going to succeed in any manner to be elevated to the next level in any manner. It's just like you can't take a guy his size seriously with any type of belt on him. Not even a trios belt. I'm sorry, because trios belt would be some say would be acceptable. I think that's still stretching because,
Yeah.
you know, that's a trios belt. I get it. Three guys. He doesn't have to be there all the time. Whatever, whatever. But it's not feasible. You know, he could
Yeah,
do whatever he wants on the indie scene and all that jazz. Great. He's living his dream in
And,
regards to it. But
yeah, and we know somebody actually like we all know somebody that fits into that category of the Marco Stunt, and that
yeah,
would be somebody that we saw as a teenager, very talented,
yeah,
could definitely make a name for himself in the indie scene, and he even got a chance to be an extra, I'll say an extra, on in a WWE match. And we all
yeah,
watched it.
yeah.
But he's not going to be somebody that's going to be on a high end TV show on a weekly basis. He doesn't have the height, the size,
Mhm.
uh, and I don't want to say not the talent, but there is a talent level that he's not going to reach,
yeah. I mean, look,
and that's okay.
his size was always going to work against him. It's just the sad truth of genetics, I guess.
Hmm.
There's nothing he could do about that. So he was always going to be like as a character, he was always going to be somebody that was just going to have a short shelf life. Like there's only so much you can ever do with somebody like that. And a couple years ago, AEW finally figured that out. And they brought him back that one time earlier this year just to have Jungle Jack destroy him, which really actually made sense in Jungle Jack's booking.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, you weren't going to really. You weren't ever going to really be able to do more with him than what they did, and my argument was they did too much. Again, like I said, I have nothing personal against this guy, okay, but I'm going to get dark here. Thank God he wasn't ever a Von Erich because Chris Von
um,
Erich was too small, was too brittle, had asthma and shit. And so he could never be like his brothers were, unfortunately.
yeah,
And it led to him killing himself because he was just so depressed over it. And
because
just
he
it's
couldn't
just
be
and that's just
he
so
could live up to
terrible.
the family legacy, and that really
Right. And it's
hurt
like
him,
nobody
and
ever
it
asked him
sucks.
to. Like I don't think Fritz forced him into the ring the way he basically forced Mike into the ring, especially
No,
after David's death and shit. But it's like
he just
thank
wanted to
God
live up
Marco
to the
Stunt never
potential.
had that in his own family. Okay, because it's like, look, yeah, unfortunately, you were the runt of the litter or something like that, and I'm not I don't mean that seriously. Okay, again, like I said, I have nothing personal against this guy. But so like, thank God he didn't ever have to live up to something like that, or feel like he had to live up to something like that. But again, it's just ridiculous. You can't ever take that seriously. And again, maybe I'm too Cornette influenced, or maybe I'm just too much in like the 80s and the 90s and everything. And like, yeah, wrestlers are smaller now and they do more flippy shit and whatever. But I still, it's like the only thing that I can think of that's close to Marco Stunt that was ever allowed to be on TV for a period of time in WWE was Zach Gallen, and that was a bit different because of he had only had one leg.
Yeah.
But again, it was the kind of the same thing in that they were going to milk that for all it was worth, but it wasn't worth a lot, and it only lasted a few months.
Correct.
Okay.
Who was the guy that had no chin? Who was the chinless guy that was in WWE for a little while? He was coming down with one of the. Who was he coming down with? Was he coming down with Carmella? Yeah, he was coming down with Carmella.
Oh, Ellsworth.
Yes,
Oh,
Ellsworth.
yes.
James Ellsworth. Yeah. Again, the same thing basically happened with him. Now they did get somehow like a second run out of him
Yeah. But
when he was with Carmella,
But he
but
was there for the sole purpose of comedic relief.
right. But that was
He
just
was
it.
not supposed to be an
Comedic
in-ring
relief.
star.
Marco Stunt was not booked as comedy relief.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's a place for everybody in wrestling, and you just got to know that place and milk it for what all it's worth.
yeah,
So,
and James Ellsworth seemed to understand that was his role,
yes,
and he did it well for what it was worth.
yes. So I want to just before we sign off for today, because I think we've been on here a long time now that I look at it.
We love you a long time.
Yes.
Sorry.
I want to talk about Crown Jewel just a little bit since you guys read the spoilers.
Well, I didn't read spoilers.
I should say
read
the spoilers.
I
You
read
read the
results.
results.
Read results, not spoilers.
It did air live, but I refused to watch because
Right. We know your reasons
pretend
for
I
it.
have principles.
Yes. So I just want to kind of recap some of the matches that I've been watching, and so the Bloodline match, that was weird. I'll just say that the way that match played out was very weird. Like you had the Bloodline, and the Bloodline doesn't even make sense anymore because it's not really a bloodline. There's only Jacob Fatu and Solo are the only two that are related because those two are brothers, if I remember correctly. They're brothers.
No,
No,
Solo is the brother of Jimmy and Jay,
Correct.
I thought Jacob was another brother.
not of Solo. I don't think.
But he is family because I know his last
name.
name's Fatu, so he's one of these.
Well, let
Fatu
me.
He's
let me
more
pull
of
it
a
up real
cousin,
quick.
I believe.
Oh, I thought he was a brother. I don't know
One
why.
of them.
I could have swore I read that, but
One of them is I want to say an adopted as well.
Jacob Fatu, his father was Sam Fatu, who was better known in the WWF as the Tonga Kid and Tama of the Islanders, whose
Correct.
tag team partner was Haku,
hmm
and he was
Right.
also the Samoan Savage in WCW. So yeah,
Right.
that makes him a cousin.
right. So he's a cousin. Okay, so he's
of
still
Solo-
he's
of
still
Solo
bloodline.
and
I knew he was
WCW.
bloodline. I've just mixed up the relationship. But anyways,
Yeah, he is part of the Anawai family, whereas
yes,
Tama Tonga and Tongaloa are not.
right. They are those two are brothers.
I think technically they're cousins, but they're like adoptive brothers, and Haku is their father. Like
Yes.
Right.
one is legitimately
Haku
the
is the
son of
link between
Haku, and
those two.
and the other is the adoptive son of Haku.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
They're the Haku I knew
The
was the
big-
link between them.
The bigger one, I think, is the adoptive one. The shorter one, I think, is actually Haku's son.
But there's no blood there. That is not a bloodline. Like
No, because
they
the
are
Anawai family-
different islands
Yeah, the Anawai family, Samoa,
and different families.
Haku, Tonga.
So
But I mean,
the bloodline
yeah,
doesn't. The whole premise of the bloodline really doesn't work anymore. So I understand our friend AJ's
Yeah.
annoyance with it because it is the generic version of the bloodline.
the bootleg, as he calls it.
Yeah. But it's one of those things. As I was watching that match, there was a lot of pops for Roman Reigns because they were glad to have him back. He's the OTC, blah blah blah. Jimmy this is where I always get it screwed up. The Yeet guy is Jimmy.
No.
Yeet is
No, that's
Jay.
Jay. That's
Yes.
Jay. Okay. This is
Yes,
where I always
remember
get it screwed
Yeet.
up because I can never keep who's who correct.
Remember, Yeet has an E in it, just like Jay.
Yes. So Jay
Jimmy's
is
the one that's married to Naomi.
right. So Jimmy and
Jimmy's the one who gets the DUIs.
Yes.
yeah. So Jimmy and Roman came down together. Jay comes out of the stands like he does, and there's no animosity to begin with. But then when Jay goes to tagging, because he's like they're calling for Roman, he doesn't tag Roman. He tags in Jimmy again. So he's like, why not tag me in? Blah blah blah. That whole thing because he doesn't trust Roman still. And then eventually Roman gets in, but he gets his ass. He does some moves, but he pretty much gets his ass whooped by Solo, which is kind of weird. Like they just kind of let Solo, and of course, Jacob Fatu is like the indestructible monster now, where that was Solo. Now Solos can get hurt, and Jacob's indestructitible.
I love Jacob.
Like,
He's so
he got
I
like
watched
4
him
super kicks to the face and still didn't go down. It was like I'm like, okay,
I watched him in MLW. He's so good. Go ahead.
But so you have that. And of course, at the end, Sammy comes down because they were beating everybody up on the original Bloodline. And then, of course, they have Solo cornered in the middle of the ring. They have him in the middle of the ring. They have 4 guys on each side. And Solo, sneaks out somehow. And Roman and Sammy hit each other. And Sammy gives him a haluva kick and knocks Roman out. So now, okay, well, did he do it intentionally and all? I'm like, this is just bad booking from a standpoint of, I get the point them not wanting the old Bloodline guys to win. That makes sense. But the rest of it, how they got there, the ending thing with Sammy coming down, it was just messy. And then, of course, after that, you had the tag team turmoil, as I will call it. I know that's not what they called it, but I will call it that because it looked like turmoil in the entire time in the ring with 4 tag teams there.
Of course.
There was one major slippage where where Io Sky and who's the other person who's her tag team partner? Io Sky and who's the other?
I'm having a brain fart.
But she went to Kyrie. So Io Sky went to throw Kyrie up onto the turnbuckle and she missed the turnbuckle. So like she didn't do the move and then then the other person just kind of fell off the top of the turnbuckle. I was like, no, that didn't look good. But yeah, and then there was a spot where in that match was like, okay, it's time for me to get my spot. I got my spot. Oh, no, it's my turn for my spot now. I got my spot. Like it was turned into a spot fest, and it was 8 people. I'm like, oh my God, like this is ridiculous. And then of course you had 2 people in there that I had no idea who they were, and that was Legend and whoever her tag team partner was.
Lash Legend and the other girl. Yeah.
Yeah, she's that important that she's the other girl.
I really don't like that her name is Lash Legend because I'm going to start saying Lash LaRue instinctively.
So it's just like, it was just like this, and no offense to any of the women that are in there, but I'm going to say this: Piper Niven is probably the best actual wrestler out of all them, and she had the least amount of time in the ring.
I think she's really good. I liked her in the UK NXT UK. She was I was always been a fan of hers.
Yeah,
yes, I understand she is not
she's not a looker.
Yeah, and I get that. Like I understand from that standpoint, if you're trying to put the people that look physically impressive in the ring and give them more ring time, I get that. Okay,
but not saying we let Nia Jax have all the time. Okay.
Yeah, so I get it from that standpoint. I don't think it's right. You should put the best wrestlers in the ring at any given time. And Piper Niven, in my opinion, is definitely one of the better wrestlers.
Yep.
And so is Bianca. Still don't like Bianca, but at least she also has a very good ring presence and actually can do a lot of and does very well. The 2 that shouldn't have been in the ring were definitely the tag team that I didn't know, Lash Legend and the other person. Like those 2 people did not need to be in the ring. They didn't even need to be in that match, in my opinion. But I'm sure they just wanted to give him as many women as possible airtime, considering they are where they are, and they wanted to feature a lot of women in that on the card. Um, then you had the Bronson Reed match, which was interesting. It wasn't terrible. It was what you kind of expect. I was impressed to see him go up the top rope as fast as he did, and then drop two belly flop splashes on. Well, one hit, one didn't. That was pretty impressive. 1 second, I've got somebody asking me questions.
While Jeremy is answering that question, I will just update. So the bloodline members there, Haku. So Tongaloa is Haku's son.
Okay.
Tamatonga and the still yet to debut, because we believe he's under contract, Hikuleu,
Yes.
are his nephews slash adopted sons. So I guess he, adopted them. I don't know exactly for what reason. I don't think it's really said that, but Hikuleu is like 6'8", it says though. So I'll be kind of
Yes.
interested to see him.
I will tell you about Hikaru. I watched him in New Japan. I like him. He's gonna be an acquired taste for some because of his move set. He's a big dude like Drew in that area. He's a big guy. So some people like that, like what they do. Some
So we know
people
somebody
don't,
who definitely will not like him.
but maybe. But he's an athletic guy. So, he's average on the mic. It is what it is, but I think he's a really good wrestler.
So we had that match, which was, like I said, it was what to be expected. There were some surprises to me with Bronson. He might have won me over a little bit with his abilities. Like I said, he's a throwback in his physical appearance and his abilities to the Bam Bam Biglows and guys
Yeah.
of that nature. Big Vader, was another guy that was pretty mobile for being a big guy. Still like his music.
Now.
It's time. It's time. Vader time.
Vader's music was better in WCW. If you ever go to YouTube, you type in Vader WCW
Yep.
theme, he had a much better theme in WCW than his WWF music. Not that his
That
WWF
does.
music was bad, but his WCW music was better.
Yeah, it was.
Then we had the women's crown jewel match, which was just, I don't know. These crown
Tiffany
jewel
tried
matches
my
are
passion
dumb.
twice.
I had an invisible crown in my hands. That's what I was
These crown
crowning myself with.
these crown jewel matches are dumb. I'm just gonna say this. They're giving them a title that his only purpose is for this particular PLE.
Bragging rights.
It's for that particular crowd. That's what it's for.
Like, so I get the whole title versus title match, but I do not like the whole premise of it's for this goofy title that has no relevance in the WWE except for one particular event. And that match was what it was.
April 1st, 1990, WrestleMania 6.
It didn't make sense, and people can dispute this if they want to. You had what's her name? Why can't I think of her name all of a sudden? The blonde haired girl.
Tiffy time?
Yes. You had her come down and try to cash in on that match because both people were in the ring and they were both had a title. So she could have got either one. And it's so, but she came down so early.
That is one of the things I read because it looks like she tried to cash in twice.
Yes.
So not really sure what they were.
And neither person was knocked out. Like normally you do it when they're both knocked out. Nobody was knocked out. Like they were just essentially in a rest. Like they were around and moving. So it wasn't like they were completely knocked out. It wasn't the end of the match.
I feel like they're waiting to turn her face because some of the sites I read that reviewed that match said that would have been a perfect time for her to cash in. But then some people were like, do you want her to cash in at this type of PLE when it's not in the United States? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's better to do it while it's in the United States or Canada or, home soil.
The other thing that makes it a bit complicated there is that when you come right down to it, cashing in on somebody when they're like exhausted, tired, knocked out, whatever the case might be, is a heel thing to do.
Yes.
Correct.
So
And
if
they're
the
trying
end
to turn
result
her
you want from
face.
this is for her to turn face, it's trickier.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the thing is too, it can also matter about who you're cashing in on. And since Nia is pretty much the monster heel right now, and now she's being like abusive towards Tiffany and everything, you could probably get away with it. But it's still not necessarily like the optimal thing to do.
Yeah. And then, of course, I don't think I missed any matches. Now we are at the final match, which is the title for title Crown Jewel men's match, which hasn't been great. It hasn't been bad. It's been okay. It's
Well,
nothing memorable yet.
let me
Hmm.
just kind of correct you slightly. Those matches, like the Liv Nia match and the Cody Gunther match, they weren't title for title.
Well, the Crown Jewel match.
They're for the Crown Jewel Championship, but like neither guy's belt that they
Losing
wear on Raw
anything.
and SmackDown every week are at stake. Yeah,
Yes, yeah, they're not losing any titles.
yeah,
Just bragging rights. That's really all it is.
yeah. That's what those were. Hey, what didn't they do with PLE once upon a time called bragging rights, where it was all
And
like Raw
Jeremy,
versus SmackDown matches? That's all it is.
the other thing they do is they like, of course, like me and Pat were talking before you got on, like they're not gonna carry around that belt on national television.
Right, I know.
So they're putting that belt in the vault as a hey, you're the first ever winner of this belt, and they gave each one of them like a ring, where on the ring it kind of looks like the belt per se a little bit, but it's a ring for them to wear to have the achievement of being the first ever to win those belts.
Yeah, it's great, and I have a feeling Gunther's going to win because it makes more sense for Gunther to win this match, just to kind of push him. So evidently, with that smile, Cody wins. But anyway, it's just this this PLE was not terrible. It was not great. It was right in the middle. There were some good things, some bad things. These Crown Jewel matches were. I would have liked to see these guys actually wrestle, in a one of them loses the title and the other one goes for their title kind of deal. I think that would make these matches more fun to watch and more interesting. Be better stories involved in those because these all it is like I'm the better champion. I'm the better champion. No, I'm the better champion. Who cares? I'm not invested in who's the better champion.
At the end of the day, tomorrow night on Raw needs to start officially putting together your Survivor Series pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
They need to.
absolutely.
They can't be waiting
Because that's
like,
less than a month away now.
Yeah, it's 4 weeks from yesterday.
So,
Is that on a Saturday?
I'm pretty sure. Let me double check.
Is it the 24th or the 30th?
My guess would be the
30th. Yeah.
Survivor Series,
And it's a 2-day, right? They're doing 2-day Survivor
so, yeah,
Series?
that's Saturday.
Or is
No,
it
it's
just
one
one
day.
day this year?
It's one day.
One
What
day.
Survivor Series?
Royal Rumble's
Survivor
the next
Series
one.
is
That's a
still just
2-day.
1 day.
Yeah. So the 30th, yeah.
All right. Well, I think this is a good place to stop and say thank you.
I
do you
think
guys say?
you are full of it.
Well, I am, and I'm holding it in.
Well, I guess I set that one up too perfectly for you.
Yes, you did.
And I'm off my game. I'm getting criticized by people online for criticizing Marco Stunt after all. So
Yes. All right. So this is a good place to stop for the day. Call it a day and end our podcast. So we just want to, as always, we just thank everybody for watching. We really appreciate it. We do this for entertainment purposes only. Sometimes we say some things that you may not agree with, and hey, leave a comment. Let us know what you don't like in regards to our takes on certain things like the Marco Stunt. Maybe you really like Marco Stunt. We'd like to know that you like him so we can make fun of Marco Stunt more. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not.
Maybe.
I would definitely make fun of Marco Stunt more if you tell me you really like Marco Stunt.
Oh,
But in all honesty, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. We love all you guys. We'll continue to do this as long as we can. And maybe we'll put out more episodes as maybe this gets a little bit more traction. We'll see how that goes. But with that said, we thank you for watching, and we hope you finished with us.